Okay. So the first question we wanted to ask was, what do you remember of the student activism when you were at SMC? And if you could share more about the occupation of the chapel and the hunger strike protests, if you remember anything.
All right. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, hold on. I lost the visual.
Oh,
Now, you know what? There's a thing saying this meeting is being recorded over everybody's faces at the top. So is that something that I need to, yeah. Could we, there's a thing over y'all's faces, over your face. It's like, it says this meeting is being, oh, maybe I should just click on okay. Okay, we got it. I got it. It was my bad.
sounds good.
Okay. All right. I was at St. Mary's from 1969 to 1973. And I was in and out of there in 1974 because of the boycott. Herman got redshirted, and Herman couldn't play in 73. So I was still in the Bay Area after I graduated, and I wanted to see Herman graduate. Herman and I started out together. I wanted to see him graduate. Okay. So during that time, well, when I was from 70 to 72, I was Black Students Union president. I was Black Students Union president for 2 consecutive years. And so after uh, the administration fired Odell Johnson, it incensed and it ignited a lot of activism on campus. And that also started to ripple through the Bay Area, especially after we did the the walkout. Now I'm saying, we did. In other words, I wasn't a basketball player, nor was my good friend Leon Collins. Okay, Leon Collins and I provided security for Herman when he read the statement, the start of the boycott statement that initiated the boycott. He let everybody know why uh, the team was boycotting at Santa Clara University. So the boycott actually was the lightning rod for the chapel protests and the fast also. The chapel protest was about a couple of months, a month and a half or so after the boycott. So as I understand it, from the players who I'm still in touch with, the players were Al Strange. Al Strange was a senior at the time. Roy Brown, Herman's brother, was a junior at the time. Nate Carroll and Maurice Harper were sophomores, and Herman was a junior at the time. So I'm still in touch with everybody except for Al Strange. So the uh, the boycott, the basketball boycott, lasted for the entire season. Okay. Now Herman dug up some real valuable information for you all. Herman dug up um, the demands the chapel protesters submitted to the administration, which amongst those demands was continued support for ethnic studies. We already had ethnic studies. We already had ethnic studies there, but and there's another article also. Um, Herman, I sent to Michael, because I found an article in your newspaper. You all have a newspaper there on campus. So there's an article, I can't think of the title of it right now. It says something like chapel protest or something leads to high potential program or something of that nature. The high potential program was also a result of the chapel protest, because that's where the administration gave us the money, gave us the funding for continued ethnic studies courses. We call those courses, and we use we use ethnic studies. We also use third world studies. Okay, the um, the activism around Odell's termination was community wide. You know, both the Black Students Union and then the Chicanos had a group called Mecha. Okay, you know, Movimiento. I can't. I don't know what it's an acronym for something. And then there also were some Filipino students who were involved in that movement too. So it was, you know, what we called at that time a third world movement, and that uh, chapel protest also, in addition to Odell's firing, the chapel protest also had to do with the administration terminating a couple of Chicano professors, and the feeling was that they were going to terminate, you know, some other programs too. So that chapel protest was resistance. It was a protest. It was a statement against that. So um, the Bay Area media got involved in that, and I never really looked at a yearbook, but Herman told me this weekend, and I think he said the 72 yearbook, or one of those yearbooks, 72 or something, 73 or stuff. There's pictures of the uh, the protesters, and there's in the chapel. And I've actually sat for a historical presentation of St. Mary's with Brother David, and Brother David is the vice president, I think, of the board of trustees or something. So he has some pictures, some captions from that chapel protest also. So it was a fact. And sometimes like movements start off, like real large, but towards the end there was still a nucleus of people in the chapel who were staying in the chapel, were fasting in the chapel, with whom the administration negotiated the demands that Michael has. Michael has Herman dug them up, and Michael has them. So it'd be, I think it would be interesting for you all to read those, or either have Michael read them to you, give you copies of them, or something like that. Okay. So getting back to the basketball walkout, you know, other than my participation in providing Herman security when he read the boycott initiating causes, the speech and everything, no, I didn't have too much to do with the planning of that. Okay. And as I understand it from Herman and a couple other ball players, that the entire team was going to boycott initially. And there was a meeting the night before the game. See, we were in Justin Hall, and the leader, one of the leaders of the chapel protest, Daryl Burnett, was my roommate at the time. Of course, later on, Herman and I roomed together from 72 and 73. But Herman's brother was on campus. So Herman and Roy uh, were rooming together in Justin. And Burnett and we were rooming together in Justin, right down the hall from each other. Second floor, first, I can't remember what floor. But anyway, I actually went to Herman and Roy's room, to visit them the night before the game. And one of the boycotters, Al Strange, he opened the door, but he wouldn't allow me to come into the meeting. Okay, so you know, like I don't, I didn't really, I wasn't there, but I do, hear as years have gone by, I've heard that the entire team was supposed to protest. Okay, and they didn't. Um, the night of the game, Herman, Leon, and I got there just before halftime. So the team was still in the locker room. They were getting ready to come out. So we went in there, announced our presence, told them they were there, and told them that we were going to go out there at halftime and read the speech. So we walked out there at halftime. So uh, Leon and I flanked Herman, for security purposes. And we faced, and I can't, I know we faced the majority of the gym. I think they were just I think it was just seating on one side, I think I don't know for sure, but we uh, and the team, the five boycott, the four boycotters, Al Strange, Roy Brown, Nate Carroll, Morris R. Harper, they stood behind us. Herman had a bullhorn he got, from somewhere. So he used a bullhorn to read the speech. And, people started jeering and it was racial slurs and all this other kind of stuff. Okay. So after Herman read the speech, we expeditiously, but calmly, like in a proud manner, we didn't run, we exited out of the gymnasium and we came back to campus. Okay. Um, I think a few days after that, okay, Herman and we went in Herman's room and here comes the FBI. They were looking for Herman. The FBI is looking for Herman now. Okay. And in essence, what they told Herman and I were together when that happened. So what they told they didn't mention they didn't mention my name. And I think the information that they got, see, that's another thing too. I wish I knew how they got information. Of course, now Herman wasn't a low profile person. Herman was an all Northern California basketball star, sought after by a lot of schools. So Herman had profile, but uh, they said, listen, they said, you cannot disrupt public events. If you disrupt the public events, that's a federal offense, and we will arrest you. We will arrest you. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. So that was like the essence of that conversation right there. Okay. So a couple of months after the boycott, the the chapel protests started, to where it's like people were occupying a large majority of the chapel. And then I think this lasted about approximately a week. And as time went on towards the end, I guess some of the people who were fasting, they couldn't take it, so they left. And I'm glad they did, because I didn't want them to stay there. If they were going to eat, then no, you can support this. You just can't be in here. You just can't be in here. So Daryl Burnett, uh, 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 African American student, Manuel Gutierrez, I think Manny was from the Philippines, and I know Joaquin Hagedorn, they're from the Philippines. So they were like some of the core people, there. And of course, like Metro was involved, and we had Black students involved in that process too of drawing up those demands. Herman and Phil Vargas. Phil Vargas, my dear friend from high school, Cathedral High School in Los Angeles. Phil got 3 walkie-talkies. He got me, him, and Herman walkie-talkies. So we provided the security because y'all, Alexis, Natalia, we knew the police were coming. We just knew, Contra County Sheriff's Office at least, we knew they were coming. So Phil got the walkie-talkies. So we and also there was only one entrance to the school. That same one that's there right now. So we didn't just say, okay, they're going to come through that way, because that's the obvious way to come. So Phil, we spent a lot of time uh, patrolling that particular area, but we also spent time in and around the chapel too. Because if they were to come, we were not going to let them get in, without us, standing in their way. Okay, so um, we it was like I said, the fast lasted for about a week. Okay, and we had a code. Phil developed a code in Spanish. We would use just to alert everybody on the walkie-talkies. Because Herman and I kind of stayed close. What Herman and Phil patrol, I kind of stayed close around the chapel. But Phil was basically like, circling the perimeter, and Herman and I were actually, on the ground a lot. So uh, oh, another thing is too, see, during that time, it's not funny, but somebody burned down that guard shack, that sits out there. You see right now, somebody burned that down too. Okay, so uh, other people came from other schools. People from San Francisco State. Michael asked me early on, did any other universities participate? So people came from San Francisco State, for sure, their Black Students Union was represented there. Then there were other Chicano groups who came and represented themselves. One guy, now I don't know if it was loaded, okay, but there's a picture of one guy, one Chicano guy. He's standing there with a rifle. He had a rifle there, and like I said, I don't know if it was loaded or what, and I definitely wasn't going to ask him about that. But anyway, that's kind of like oh, so that chapel protest and that fast that lasted approximately like a week. That was about the firing of Chicano faculty members. And also, we're thinking if you start doing that, like then you're coming after our studies program. We already had like at least 10 or 15 ethnic studies courses. We call them third world courses at that time. And so we thought those were in jeopardy. But as it turned out, the fast uh, in the protests around that chapel situation caused Brother Mel, the president of the school, to commit in writing money for high potential programs and also money to protect and secure the existing third world programs, third world studies programs. Okay. Did that kind of answer the question? Okay, like I said, with the boycott piece, everybody was supposed to boycott, but when it came down to it, it was only the now there were two other African American players on the team who didn't boycott. There was like I think it was seven altogether. Two of the African American players did not boycott, and none of the white players boycott. So there was talk about they tried to take the Herman's and Roy's and Nate's Murray scholarships. The community protested against that. During that time, now these are some names that were kind of still. One of these names, Willie Brown. He's still famous in the Bay Area to today. I think he was mayor of San Francisco during that time. He came on campus, and two football players from the Oakland Raiders, Clarence Davis, Tom Brown, who was the coordinator of Black Student Affairs, attended USC, University of Southern California, with Clarence Davis, and then Jack Tatum, who was the vicious Oakland Raiders safety, one of the most feared men in football during that time. He came on campus too because he was friends with Clarence Davis. So we had a lot of celebrity-like people who were interested in what was going on at St. Mary's around the basketball boycott and also around the chapel protests. Okay.
Thank you for sharing about the chapel protest. You mentioned as well other schools. And with that, we have a question of what do you remember about of the basketball team walkouts? And can you share what you remember, if anything, about the Cal State Hayward protest?
Okay. Now, the 72 boycott was a second basketball boycott. Okay. Second basketball boycott. Now, keep in mind, okay, that stuff happened 55 years ago or something like that. And my, my, and I checked with various people. I checked with Herman. I checked with Herman's brother. Then I'm searching my own memory bank, and we're still, I'm saying it was Cal State Hayward. Okay. Herman says it was a Fresno game. Now, Herman's there is a article in Jet magazine. It would have to be a 71 article. Jet magazine was a weekly African American publication. Okay, it will come out every week, throughout the country. So they actually did a small caption on that first protest at 71. 71 was the first one. So I'm saying the game was Cal State. It was a home game in the gym because me and another dear friend of mine, lifelong friend of mine, Kamal Abdul-Jabbar, no relationship, we stood on the court and stopped the game for about 30 minutes. Herman, Roy, and Sam Hill, Nate, and Maurice, they didn't come at all. They didn't come at all. So we had two demands. One, Nate Carroll and Maurice Harper, they were the best scorer. Nate was, I think, was the leading rebounder on the team, and Maurice was a leading scorer. And eventually, Maurice became one of the top 100 basketball players at St. Mary's. So We demanded they get scholarships, and there was a series of meetings. Before that, again, there was a series of meetings with the athletic administration. It was Don Leo McCaleb or Don McCaleb was the AD, and then Bruce Hale, who is the father-in-law of a Hall of Famer, Rick Barry. Rick Barry was a former Golden State Warrior. I think that's what something like that. What they was calling the team at that time, and he was coaching at that time. So we had meetings with him. I attended those meetings. Okay, as Black Student Union president, I thought it was my responsibility to attend those meetings. So they wouldn't budge. So okay. So the night of the game, uh, Sam Hill, Roy Brown, Nurdin Herman, they didn't even show up. They weren't even on campus. Okay, so me and Kamal, we said, well, we got to do something. So we went and occupied the court and stood on the court for 30 minutes. And people say, get off, because we didn't care. So we just left when we got ready to leave. We wanted to make that statement, and that was a televised game. I do remember that. So it was either, and I'm sorry, y'all, Natalia and Alexis and Eddie, I'm sorry. It was either the Cal State Hayward game or it was either the Fresno game. Herman just told me this weekend he thought it was we were under the impression all this time it was a Cal State Hayward game. Okay, but it was a home game. It was a televised game, and a national African American centered magazine picked up that game. Okay, so that was the first boycott. See, that one has kind of been submerged and obscured, like through over the years. That's not as but that was forceful too, because we that was about Black studies. See, we didn't have Black studies then. That was about Black studies. Now, what's the other part of your question?
Um, yeah, it was just what did you remember about the basketball team walkouts, and then if you had anything to share about the protest, but I think you covered it all.
Yeah.
So thank you. On the topic of walkouts, going back to the Santa Clara walkout, what do you remember of the Santa Clara walkout, and why do you think it had to escalate to this form of protest?
We already had to struggle for Chicano studies and Black studies. Then once they committed to give us the courses, they wanted white teachers. They wanted Europeans. Their question was, can Europeans teach these classes? So we struggled for all of that. Okay, and we, you know, we had a series of meetings before that boycott. Okay, before that 72 boycott, and we were meeting with top administrative administrators who said, no, we are not going to rehire Odell Johnson. Now, as years went by, Brother Mel, okay, and this is documented somewhere, said that it was a mistake to fire Odell Johnson. Okay, Odell Johnson was the only African American administrator. Um, Tom Brown had just got there, but he was basically not a part of the administration. But Odell was the only African American administrator. There were no Chicano administrators that I could know. I don't think no Asians, and to uh, Odell was a father figure to me. He was a father figure to a lot of other people too. Okay, a lot of students, very not just Chicano and African American students, the white students too. People looked up to him. Now, another thing I just remember too, there was a white-based organization called the Odell Johnson Defense Fund or the Odell Johnson Defense League. This is a group of white students who coalesced around that boycott situation also. So OJ was near and dear to everybody's hearts. We met, with them, with the administration to try to sit and say, listen, like we need OJ here. They wouldn't budge. They wouldn't budge. So, coming together and utilizing some sort of leverage to make a statement was why it had to escalate there, because the other efforts, to resolve this situation in terms of bringing OJ back or letting him stay, they were exhausted. We exhausted everything. People just didn't walk out there and say, okay, we're going to boycott because you got scholarships there. All they those as I said, Nate and Maurice, they got their scholarships in '71 because of a protest. Now here we are again. They may be risking their scholarships, and there was talk about taking their scholarships. I'm just reiterating now, so excuse me for that. So it was a lot at stake. It was a lot at stake there, and so there was no other ways to get a statement out there about the unjust firing of Odell Johnson. Okay, I mean they didn't even give us any. I mean, I know in terms of human resources and confidentiality. I mean, there's only so much the administration can say about that, but they didn't even give us any reason for that. Like so taking OJ away, that really just like struck devastatingly throughout the third world community on campus and throughout some of the white student community also. So we didn't have a choice. They didn't give us a choice, and we were active. Okay, we weren't the type of people who weren't. Uh, Let me just say this for a minute, okay? And sometimes I get carried away with stuff because nobody's ever asked me all these things. So all these things are kind of like got things like ignited, like in my brain. So, you know, we all came there with a collective consciousness centered in social and economic justice, racial justice, political activism. We can't, I didn't know Herman until I got to St. Mary's and a lot of other those people who we struggled with there. But we came from South Central Los Angeles. In Southern California, we came from Watts. We came from East Los Angeles, Chicano community. Herman's from West Oakland. Okay, we had people, also there from Berkeley. So we all and during that time from 60 from like those were the days where Dr. King and Malcolm, at least that area, our time at St. Mary's was subsequent to that, to the assassination of Dr. King, the assassination of Malcolm, even in the African American community, like we took the assassination of JFK and RFK, pretty serious too. So we had this collective consciousness, and uh, we knew we were the first major influx of Black and Brown students at that school. Okay, so it wasn't just about our time there; it was about y'all's time there too. Okay, at least that was some of our thinking. Okay, it couldn't have been too much about those who came before us, other than our ancestors, other than someone like Mary Pleasant, okay, who got the school started and has not been recognized for that yet. And I dug that up. See, so in a way, that was a salute to her too. Okay, so we took that into consideration. So there was, no way we were going to let that happen without making without making a statement. No way, no way.
Thank you for sharing.
Did that answer the question?
Yes, yes. And then a
Okay.
follow-up question.
Yeah,
You mentioned acting being the role of security for the Santa
yeah,
Clara walkout for Herman. Can you
yeah.
remember what Herman read or said in that speech before?
No,
No.
I mean, just okay. Now, there's a couple reasons why. Okay, and Herman got that speech the night before the game. I was going to visit Herman, and when they were talking about that speech, Al Strange wouldn't allow me to enter that meeting. He was on the basketball team. Now, his reasons for that, I mean, I don't know. Okay. As a matter of fact, he scripted the speech. He wrote the speech. And as we look back in retrospect, we actually thought he was going to read the speech. But at that meeting, as I understand it from Herman, was there directly from Herman. He presented the speech in the meeting, and he said, "Well, like, who's going to read it?" So Herman was saying to him, "I thought you were going to read the speech." So Herman said, "Well, listen, I'll read it then." Okay. So I didn't even see the speech. Herman put the speech when we got ready to go to the game. Herman put the speech in his back. I, you know, I really didn't care really. Okay. I know it was going to be something that was appropriate enough to announce the boycott and reasons. What it did was it announced the boycott and announced the reasons why we boycotted. And that's what it was. But now in terms of listening to Herman during that thing, it was a lot of noise out there. And my attention was focused on the crowd. It was focused on the audience as a good security person would be. Okay. You see, you know what I'm saying? So, then in terms of like my security experience, that's a whole nother class there. Okay. But Leon and I were actually focused on the crowd. And Herman, we heard Herman's voice, but it wasn't like, I'm listening for other things and looking for other things too. Okay. Like honed in, focus, like on our surroundings, and making sure that we could, read the statement and then get out of there. Okay. So no, I don't, it was in essence, it was Natalia and Alexis and Eddie. It was like we were boycotting, and the reason why we're boycotting is because of the termination of Odell Johnson. And that's in essence that what it was. That's what it was in essence.
The basketball protests seemed to be organized and took a lot of student planning and meetings, among other things. Was this different from the baseball protest against BYU when a truck was left on the baseball field?
Yeah, that was way different. See, now listen. Now look, now you get ready to get a long answer out of me for this. And I'm trying to answer all you guys' questions, but these questions are really provocative and they shaking loose a lot of stuff. Man, listen, okay, everybody, the students from Africa, we had a Shola Sobayo. That was his vehicle that was left on the mound. He was from Lagos, Nigeria. Very, social justice, economic justice, political, that very based. Raymond Shannon is a former Black Panther. He got in the Black Panther Party, and after that, he was in. Raymond is deceased right now. He passed. He was in the Nation of Islam, so he remained active all his. And look, don't let me get away from the question. Okay, keep that because I may even ask you again what the question is. Okay, so everybody stayed active all their lives. I mean, we're still, I don't, we're not as active, but everybody right now, we work, Herman's teaching school. I'm a social worker, I work in the community. Roy taught school. Maurice was a principal of a school. Nathan Carroll had a position at St. Mary's. He was student coordinator. So everybody still stays and we still are staying active in the community. Okay. So we were all we were all gathered around the cafeteria, okay. And I think it was I think because baseball happens, after school, and I think it was just before uh, dinner time because we were all gathered around there. So Ray says, "Hey, BYU, this is all it took." Ray says, and it's good because when people ask me about activism, well, not when people ask me, when you all start asking me about activism, one thing I think about is this collective consciousness that allows us to spontaneously move on an issue instantaneously. You see, Ray said, this is all he said. He organized this in about, hey, y'all, look, BYU is on a baseball field, and I found out they don't believe that blacks can get to heaven, nor do they believe that blacks can get in the priesthood. That's all it took for people from Watts, from South Central LA, from Africa. That's all it took. It was no question. Well, why this? Why? Look, let's go occupy the baseball diamond. That's all it took, you see. And I followed them, and some years later, they did change their doctrine. Okay. So what we did had some effect, but it did not take it didn't take like one meeting. It barely took even 1 minute. Okay. And this is a sort of collective consciousness, and nothing against, modernity, but this is without Facebook. This is without any X's and tweets and that. This is just, hey man, listen, we have a white supremacist, like racist organization on campus being represented by baseball. We're not going to let them play baseball here. Okay. So we occupied the whole diamond. Shola Sabayo drove his car on the baseball. And that was it. That was it for the game. So you got your message, now leave. Okay, now leave. So that, and there were several times to whereas things happened like that because everybody was on the same wavelength. Everybody's on the same consciousness. I mean, it was just the most beautiful, phenomenal, talented mosaic of human beings, of humanity you would ever want to see. Okay. We had orators, we had speech writers, political activists, we had artists. Activism wasn't just an action of standing on taking over a baseball diamond. If you go into that intercultural center now, you're going to see the work of Matt Stelly on those walls. That artwork in there is done by Matt Stelly and also my high school friend Mario, nickname was Sapo Salazar. Um, his artwork is in there, and then Mario went on to work for the probation and parole department in Los Angeles. And Matt Stelly has written several books around Black liberation and social justice and that. So everybody kind of stayed in their areas even after school. But it's just okay. Um, we had plays. Okay. We invited Elaine Brown from the Black Panther Party to come on campus. We invited the Nation of Islam to come on campus. They came on campus. And then Joan Baez came on. We didn't invite her, but Joan Baez came on campus. And you guys look up some of these names. Okay, Elaine Brown, Black Panther Party. Um, Joan Baez, also was a famous artist who did a lot of stuff around social justice at that particular time. So it was just, a wonderful, phenomenal feeling to be around that type of humanity and those types of human beings that will put it all on the line, for liberation issues, for Black and Chicano liberation issues. Did that cover that question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Uh,
Um,
don't mention it.
you mentioned certain doctrines rooted in racism at the time from other schools. How were you feeling when you participated in these protests? Were you scared something was going to happen to you or anyone you know?
The only thing that scared me was that 71 piece when I thought we may not get the scholarships for Maurice and Nate. Then they may ask for Herman, Roy, and Sam Hill. Sam Hill was the leading scorer on the team. The only thing I was worried about was people losing scholarships after that 71 piece. And then after that 72 piece, people losing scholarships. But I put skin in the game also. I said, like if they're going to do that, then I'm getting out here too. Okay, so that's why I did security for Herman. I stood on the court for either, like I said, not to lead in Alexis and Eddie, either that Cal State Hayward game was a Fresno game, and then we also did security for the chapel. So I wasn't even afraid about the police coming on campus. No, I wasn't afraid. I was not going. I was doing everything I could to keep the police away from the protesters. We're going to Phil and Herman and I were dedicated. And remember now, this is after Herman already stood on. This is after the FBI was after Herman. Okay, you see, now that kind of bothered me too. But I couldn't talk Herman. You know, I couldn't talk Herman out of that. Let's say, hey man, look, just stay off, away from this, because you may be the first to go to jail. You know, but as far as what I had to lose, I don't feel like I had anything to lose. Okay. I don't feel like, but I was concerned that Herman and they may lose scholarships after that 72 boycott and after that 71. That's the only thing that bothered me. Nothing else really bothered me. Advocating for Black studies, that didn't bother me. The other protests we did at school, that didn't bother me. Now I didn't want to see that guard shack get burnt. Now when that guard shack got burnt, I didn't want to see that type of thing happen. Okay. But there's only so much you can control because there was so many people involved. There's only so much you can control. So no, I wasn't really me personally. I wasn't afraid of anything. I was more afraid for other people than I was for myself. Okay.
And then you also mentioned prior the FBI visiting campus and speaking to Herman. Is there anything else you remember from that interaction? Any feelings, emotions, any events?
Slow, be careful, slow down a little bit. Okay.
Mm.
Pump the brakes. You know, for Herman, I wasn't, nobody could stop me. Okay. This was during the time of the war. And I didn't go to the draft. If you're 18 you have to go to the draft board and sign up. So I was already defying that. I was 1A. I could have got a 2S classification. And see, some of these things I did, if I have to do, I do it all over again. Because people say, well, Musheer, all you had to do was go and sign. No, I'm not signing up for nothing. I'm not signing up for no draft. I'm not going to no draft. I'm signing for nothing. Let them do me 1A. When they come to get me, I'm just going to jail. I had already planned to do prison time. Okay. The sentences they were giving out was like 3 years. If you're dodging the draft, that's what they used to call it then. Uh, I wasn't dodging nothing. I'm standing up and protest against the war. Okay. I don't even like that term draft dodger. But anyway, you get three, most of the people who I know, they were getting 3 years, they were doing a year and a half. So I was ready to do a year and a half, in prison. Okay. So nothing, you know, I was more worried about Herman. I was saying, look, hey man, look, just be careful. But Herman didn't stop though. He didn't stop. Now something he said he didn't. What did he? Okay, I don't know. You guys ask him or whatever. Now Michael said like towards the end of this, we're all going to get together, and that'd be good because now Herman's profile was a little lower then. He didn't go. I think that's why he didn't go actually in the chapel. But Phil presented us with an opportunity. Said, look, we can just do security, and so we did that. So I was more concerned about him than anything else. So after the FBI came, I don't care, because I didn't really care. Okay, I still don't care.
Well, thank you for sharing. How did the college respond to all the activism, to the protests? How did your family respond? And what about other students or eventually other faculty and staff at SMC?
Okay, so uh, first my family. Okay, so I came from Los Angeles after I transitioned from the Jim Crow South. Okay, so my family in Louisiana, they knew I was, involved. They knew. Okay. My uncle, he didn't really know. That's who uh raised me in Los Angeles when I got to LA. He really didn't know, but he taught me, look, don't be afraid to speak out against white supremacy. They taught me that. Okay. Don't be afraid to do that. They taught me public speaking. They taught me how, not so much, community organized, but how to interact with the community. Like how to, like y'all say, look for allies. And then two, um, one of my teachers, one of my professors, Karegi Hekamara, I don't know if I mentioned this to you all, he taught me about group dynamics, like how to interact with groups, who I could almost like go into a group and I could say, these two people may be allies, these two people may not. So my family, they knew. I mean, I wasn't telling them or writing them or calling them, telling them, but they knew, they already knew. Now, as far as the rest of the students are concerned, they elected me. Did you said how would other students, what was the part of, okay, they elected me Black Students Union president for two years in a row. There was only one other BSU president before me, and he was an upperclassman. So I started my piece as a sophomore, and then as a junior it ended. Okay, it ended after the boycott and after the chapel protest. Okay, it ended. So I mean, they elected somebody else. But the students seem to really be appreciative of it. Okay. And as far as a lot of these crazy white students who were taunting, I don't know if I said this, but there were whites when the women came, um, the African American women couldn't even walk across campus at certain times, especially towards the evening, without being, heckled and taunted. Okay. So the posture I'm taking is don't mess with nobody. Y'all stop that. We're here to go to school. We're not here for, we're not gonna let you all make us victims. So as far as like, I think establishing a balance of power, I think our community, the Black and brown community, I think they appreciated that. Now, listen, I didn't get along with everybody. Okay, I didn't get along with everybody. As a matter of fact, and I'm putting this on record also, the meeting that a boycott, the meeting on that boycott evening when they were planning to do that speech to St. Clair, Al Strange should have let me in there. He should have allowed. Now I didn't even know they were doing the meeting. Okay, I don't think even Herman and Roy knew. They just came to Herman's room and Roy's room, and they set that meeting up like that. Okay, so like I said, let things that's happened. I'm not uh, begrudging anything like that, but I should have been a part of that meeting. Okay, so I didn't get along with everybody. It was a few people I didn't get along with, but I did consider that when because the women they came to me. Now I'm gonna tell you one thing. Somebody asked me what was I proud of or something. So the women came to me, okay, and they because I didn't even know. They say, listen, like we can't walk across, we have an uncomfortable feeling walking across campus, we getting heckled and all this other kind of stuff. And so I said, what, and so I found out some of the people who were doing that. So I immediately, went, and confronted them. Okay. So, I think people, now we had faculty also, African American faculty people, professors, um, they invited me to their homes. It wasn't just about the classroom. They invited me to their homes for dinner, and I would frequently get together, like with some of them out of the classroom. See, some of the white teachers, I would see them in the community. I see Orinda, Marat, Reen. They wouldn't even speak to me. Okay, they wouldn't even speak to me. So I think they appreciated it, you know, and the appreciation is mutual also because we had like a real plethora, a real phenomenal talent base. As I said, artists, who express their revolutionary spirits through artwork, through music. There was a play the Chicanos did I can't think of the name of the play, but it was an anti-administration play when they started to cut back on a lot of the studies. So, it's not just, they appreciated me. I appreciated being there. That was one of the most wonderful experiences I ever had, in spite of all the adversity. It was wonderful. So to cap it up, uh, my family knew. They knew. I mean, I didn't tell them everything, but they knew. They wouldn't be surprised. Uh, my classmates, fellow, students during that era, I think they appreciate. They wouldn't have elected me. I didn't campaign for those positions. Okay. And I was getting help from upperclassmen also because we made a move to run for student government. Okay. And out of that became Joe Bell became a student body president. He was a second African American. He was African. Okay. President. Chola Sabayo became a treasurer, and I was a class representative. And that was an organized movement too. And I got help from upperclassmen, especially in terms of the speech. I mean, I'm a fair orator, but I'm not a good speech writer. So they helped me with that. They supported with that, and then they got um, uh, votes organized around this. So I think the students appreciate it. As I said, Brother Mel, Brother Mel and I did not get along. When I went to Brother Mel's office to ask Brother Mel, Dean Slakey, it was a couple of those Christian brothers. I'm having issues with the president of the school right now around Mary Pleasant. Like I've asked him a couple times to meet with me around that. That just, he said, well, yeah, I'll meet with you. Then when I call up the appointment, he doesn't do it. Brother David, the school historian, I said, well, why can't you include Mary Pleasant in the history of the school? Oh, well, that's not my responsibility. And I'm saying in my head, not like, are you crazy? I mean, is truth your responsibility? Is social justice your responsibility? It seems as though revisionist history is your responsibility. Okay, now that's what I told him. Okay, I didn't say he was crazy, but that's what I told him. So anyway, there was a lot, like in terms of people who liked me, and then there was a few amongst the administration, a few faculty members. I don't think my history teacher, Kathy Larson, I don't think she liked me. So it was, so mostly my support was amongst the student body and the community. See, we had people from the community, we had people from West Oakland, from San Francisco State. They came and we all got along fine. No, we all got along fine. Yeah, but not Brother Mel, not Dean Slakey. And it was a Christian brother too. I can't think of his name right now. You know, no, brother Louis Civitello, we got along fine. Mr. Arriaga, the register, he's the one who informed me that in my junior year, I was headed for a double major. So, Natalia, Alexis, and Eddie, I didn't even know that. But he helped me like work through. They said, if you take this and take that, so you're taking all these history courses, all these psych courses, so you can have a double. I said, what? I didn't know. So yeah, my counselor, Brother Cashin, did not like me. Did not like me. Okay. Did that cover your question? Did that cover that?
Yes, it did. And then last but not least, our last question is, given all the history you shared with us relating to a cascade of activism on campus, and like you mentioned, the support you had and the support you didn't have, why do you think your stories of resistance were left out of
Mhm.
SMC history?
That's an excellent question right there. So, and don't let me get off track with this, because every time, you all ask me a question, it just wakes up a whole lot of neurons and stuff. Okay. And I don't want to get off course with this, especially since this is the last question. After that 72 boycott, a lot of the white community, they didn't want to come to St. Mary's. They didn't want to come. They didn't want to be there. Okay. Uh, Basketball has kind of always been the major sport at the school, because the baseball, yes, but baseball didn't have the popularity. Okay. So one, uh it was obscured, it was practically diminished because enrollment started to drop after 72. So they what is it, a cause and effect, you know and then the other thing is that uh, basketball players are they need basketball players to be compliant and not use their leverage for any political and social justice issues. Okay. So that too, uh, you don't want to tell those stories, about what happened during this. Now, some years ago, they celebrated that. I think there was a 50-year, um, was in 2022, they celebrated that boycott at that Gonzaga game. Now I know this was a fact, it was a home game, a Gonzaga game. They brought back Herman and Roy, Nate, Maurice, and Al. And at center court, I think during halftime, they said, well, these are the alumni, the students, whatever, who walked off. Now they're walking back, but in honor. So they honored that. Okay. Um, as history goes, the people in power create their own narratives. So if they're not a part, they don't want to create any narrative that would be antithetical or resistant to their attempt for white power and white supremacy. Okay. And by all means, okay, I'm not indicting, the entire institute. By no means, I mean, am I indicting the entire institution? But this is an institution, okay, that I'm telling you, they're not consistent, they're not congruent with that Lassallean principle of allowing marginalized people to come into those spaces and thrive. Okay, so they don't want to set up any sort of um, narrative or encourage, like any sort of resistance, like to their power, to their dominance. Okay, now when I look at school now and I look at our protests, as I understand it, somebody, told me, I think Alexis told me that she participated in something. And I don't know if it was a chapel protest or whatever, but I know there have been other chapel protests since that time too. Okay. We started with what we call third world studies, Black studies, Chicano studies during that time. I'm talking to students now once a week, which I'm honored to do. And thank you all for giving me this space, who are part of the ethnic studies program. Okay. So, in spite of their attempt to purposefully, just like I talked to Brother Dave, now listen, this is a good thing right here. And this to kind of like end this right here. Okay. So, I was there last year. I think it was last year. And I went there for two reasons: to talk to Brother David and to talk to Roger Thompson, whatever his name is, President Thompson, whatever his name. Okay. And so in the morning when I got there, Brother David was given a presentation on the history of the school. He did talk about the chapel protest. See, they can't submerge that. They can't obscure that anymore. That's too much of a blatant type lie right there. Okay. Um, Hold on. So afterwards, as I said, I'm reiterating, excuse me for iterating. I asked him, I said, "Are you familiar with Mary Pleasant?" Okay. He said, "No." So I said, there was an article, a 2023 article in one of the newspapers about Mary Pleasant, you know. So I'm saying, as the historian, schools historian, as vice president of the of the board, why aren't you familiar with that? Why aren't you keeping current? Why aren't you keeping abreast with emerging developments and recent developments? So in essence, like what he was telling me was like, like I don't want to be bothered with that, like that right there. And this is a Christian brother telling me that, you know. And then he went on to tell me, as I said before, pardon me for reiterating, he's saying that that is not my responsibility. Because I've asked him, I said, listen, you know, we need to include Mary Pleasant in the historical narrative of the school. You're talking about everybody else. You're talking about Bishop Alamany. And you talking, I mean, you talk all these other, she was the one of the original founders of the school. She was a abolitionist. Like Mary Pleasant used her financial resources to file a lawsuit against either the city or the streetcar line in San Francisco so that Black people can ride on the streetcar. So Black people ride on the streetcar right now, they can thank Mary Pleasant for that. So he's telling me, that's not my responsibility. So I'm saying, well, is the truth your responsibility? I'm literally telling him that. So he got all we walked from De La Salle over to where his quarters over there uh, over there. We walked from over there, had the conversation, and it really ended, really really bad with him not even, um, saying anything encouraging about. Well, we'll take a look at it. Musheer, we'll take none of that stuff. Okay, so that same day, I saw President Thompson, and I said, I would like to meet with you regarding, and I used some operative words. I said, exploring the possibility of memorializing Mary Pleasant. Oh, yeah, yeah, okay. So he was all fine. And look, this is the second meeting because when he first got to campus, he did an inaugural. Now, this may have been his inaugural speech because I saw him one other time also. Okay. But both times he's promising me, call my office and we can set up a meeting. So I calls to his office, and uh, the phone call, they put me on hold for a long time. I'm serious, y'all. They put me on hold for a long time. And then I just get, tired of waiting and hang up, may call back, and then nobody answers the phone. Okay. I spoke with, and this is not just the European uh, based staff. I'm not just, I talked with Terry Jett. Now listen, for me, I got to be honest with y'all. Okay. Uh, when we talk about elements that resist uh, true history of the school and true just elements who resist social justice and economic justice and political, freedom. We're not just talking about white people. We're not just talking about Chicanos. Sometimes, we can get in the way too. Okay. So I had a couple of conversations with Terry Jett. Okay. And we started off, she first got there, I welcomed her there and stuff like that, told whatever I could do. We had a couple of those conversations. Then those stopped. And the last conversation we had, and I think I've said this also, and again, let me apologize for being redundant over some of these things. I'm saying, she said, well, this year for Black History Month, we're talking about this in the summer. They wanted to do a celebration of the Intercultural Center, a 20-year celebration of the Intercultural Center. They wanted to do some sort of celebration of, Latin centric and Afrocentric, Chicano-centric graduations, because we started off graduation. We had, Afrocentric, what we call third world graduation ceremonies. We were afraid that was back when I was in school, and there were two before me. Hey Maya, what's up? So we had two before me. So we um uh had conversations, but she's saying, well, no, I said, you can't do a 20-year celebration because the Intercultural Center, we lost Natalia. We lost her, y'all. We lost her. Hey, Eddie. Hey, we lost Natalia. We lost her. Let's see. Let's
Yeah,
give it a
she
minute.
had to. I was gonna
Huh?
say she had to. Hold on, wait.
She had to what? She had to leave.
Oh yeah, she had to leave for a little bit. She let me know
Okay.
beforehand that she had to go.
Okay. So let me finish this up right quick. So anyway,
Okay.
they couldn't do the 20-year celebration because that would be a fallacy. That would be a falsehood. The Intercultural Center is a space where we used to celebrate our cultures. Black students, Chicano students, Asian students used to celebrate our cultures there. We were doing that in another place that we call the jail, which is over there by the gym and where it used to have the post office. We had that space over there. That space is over 50 years old. And then they changed the name from the jail to the Third World Cultural Center. Okay. And then those were the offices of the Black and Brown assistant dean coordinators. That's where their offices were. So that they built that intercultural center. And if you go and look on the wall there, when you go on the door on the left, it says multicultural center there. So now you got another name change, intercultural center there. So it's the space that needs to be celebrated. It's not like where the building is. In other words, where is the space where Black and Brown and Asian students can celebrate their cultures? Okay. So that's that same space. It's just in a different place on campus. So they had to scrap the whole idea of those celebrations of celebrating the intercultural center, celebrating the third world Afrocentric, Latino-centric, Chicano-centric graduate. They scrapped that, and at the beginning of February, they called Tom Brown, who was a former dean of Black students there, and they said, "Tom, we're going to celebrate you." So they had to scrap that, but they were getting ready to march, down an avenue that was a fictitious sort of, a celebration. Okay, they changed that. They flipped that script. So what they did was they started celebrating Tom. So long story short, and bring some closure to this, um, our conversations have been, she has not tried, she knows how to get in touch with me. She knows Tom, she knows Nathan, how to get in touch. She hasn't gotten in touch with me. So there's been no positive response from the president, no positive response from the school historian, no positive response from the DEI coordinator. Okay, so I'm going on record right now, letting you all know that. So there is an effort, especially, by Brother David and by the president, to not, bring forth the truth about the history of the school. Is not consistent with this whole idea of uh, Brother uh, John Baptist de La Salle, like being the main, like focus, and all this stuff is, a lot of the stuff is patriarchal also. They definitely would not want a African American woman to be considered as being instrumental, as being essential to developing this so-called quote unquote famous, Catholic Christian institution. They would not, they don't want that. They don't want that. So but I'm not stopping. Okay, I'm not giving up. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And you
So now,
shouldn't, Musheer. You shouldn't give up.
now Alexis. Now you know better. You know me long enough to know better than that. You know
Yeah.
that. You know that.
Okay.
Yeah. Plus, I'm
Yeah.
coming to the. I want to come to and I keep so I'm an old man and I keep forgetting who's graduating. Even if I ask you now, you tell me now, I may forget. But I'm coming. I plan on coming to the graduation. So who's graduating out of you four?
I'm
Anybody?
graduating this year.
Uh-oh, 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 uh-oh. My people. My
Yeah.
people. Go ahead, keep on keeping on. Now look, y'all focus on y'all degrees, focus on getting out of school because we need you in the community. Okay, we need you in the community to get out there as soon as you can. I'm just saying now, give something back. You may not dedicate yourselves, the way, Herman and Roy and Nate and Maurice and Sam and I have and stuff like that. But I mean, if you can give like an hour a week, like to somebody, like who needs, mentoring, they need tutoring, they need some sort of assistance, whatever, like a food drive or a clothing drive or something like that. Give something back. Somebody asked me about advice I would give you all. Give something back. Because we need you. I mean, you all see what's going on out here now. You see what's going on, okay? So we need y'all, so, hopefully, God willing, Maya, I will see you graduate, hopefully,
Yes, I'll
okay?
be there. I plan on getting my MSW in social work as well.
Oh, so you already got wait, you have an undergraduate degree already? Oh, wait,
I
no, second grade, you have okay,
no,
okay, so you want to be a social worker,
yeah,
okay?
so I plan
I
on
feel you,
starting in
I
the
feel you.
fall.
Hey, look, I'm hoping and praying that all of you all will be successful. Yeah, yeah. So Eddie, you're not graduating, huh? No? Okay. When you graduate?
It's gonna be a little awkward. Technically, I'm in an engineering program.
Well, speak up a little bit.
Um, apologize. I'm in the engineering program, so I think.
You working on an undergraduate degree?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. What about you, Alexis?
Yeah, I'm an undergrad, and I'm an accounting major, and I'm a junior.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, hopefully I'll be around when y'all graduate too, hopefully. But I'm hoping to even be around when Maya uh, graduates. Looking forward to that. Okay. So now any other questions?
Yes, we actually have one more. It's kind of like a reflectionary sort of like advice question. So basically, it says, what do you think other generations of students could learn from your experience here at SMC?
Wait, say that one more time.
Oh, yes, let me stop walking. Okay, so the question is, what do you think? What do you think other generations of students could learn from your experience? Like, what could they like? If you were to like give advice to like a student, what would you give them based on like your experience here?
Yeah. Well, one thing is focus on your undergraduate work. Let that be a priority. All right. Because the world, the world needs you. Okay. The world needs you. I don't care if it's in engineering or whatever. I mean, we have a lot of people in Black and brown communities who are, say, have some sort of fear of science and a fear of math. Okay. So, opening up undergraduate degrees, graduate degrees, whatever, it opens up opportunities for you. And hopefully you will consider, I'm just advising that open up opportunities for other people. I mean, let's start some math and science and engineering program, or if there's one already out there, go out there and volunteer for it. And if you're doing social work, now that's going to be fun if you're doing social work because, you know, you're going to get paid for something you enjoy doing, but don't just do what they remunerate you for. Do a little bit extra also, just a little bit every now and then extra. Okay, Alexis, you love basketball. Every other kid I talk to, if I talk to 10 kids, okay, say between 12 and like 15, five want to be rappers and five want to be what? Ball players. Okay, so you can use there's a friend of mine in New Orleans. He has a program called Balls and Books. Okay, it's a football based program. So he talks about, okay, well, you got called for illegal procedure. Can you spell? These are little kids. These little middle like elementary school kids. They play ball, and so he says, okay, like we're going to use football to teach you all reading and spelling and math. Okay, so you're on the 25-yard line, and somebody tells you you got a 10-yard penalty. So where is the ball going to be? So he mixes the two things. Okay, so I don't care if you're engineering, if you MSW, like what you're doing, you can always give something back. So just be aware that there are opportunities, for you to invest, and it's not even so much about money. Okay, because a lot of these places they don't need, they just need adults. They just need wholesome, healthy, positive role models to which they can expose these kids to. Because these kids really, and even adults, in social work, I work with a lot of people who are re-entering society, a lot of adults re-entering society after being incarcerated for long periods of time. I mean, I do this almost every day. Okay, so there's a need. So what I call a social enrichment. Give something back. Be socially enriched. Okay. The other thing I would say, be culturally enriched also. Okay. And you don't have to start with Mary Pleasant. You don't have to start with Frederick Douglass. Start in your own family. Like some people now, they're doing these ancestral sort of searches and they're finding out, like they're related to people who they didn't know. So, be culturally enriched. Know that and be proud of your cultures. Okay, be proud. Don't be ashamed of it. Nobody, looks at any community or any legacy as being perfect. Okay, but we don't want to accept this narrative that any of us are less than because of our heritage. Okay, so embody that, pass that along. Teach your children. That too. I mean, your biological children, whoever you have. Bring to society. Okay, now this is the last thing too. Well, two more things right quick. Be careful what you do with your money. Okay, be careful. Always have that rainy day fund. Okay, I was I just had went through a couple years ago a couple hurricanes. So the insurance company gave me enough money, but then I had to get a lawyer because there's a lot of racism around African Americans in Louisiana and getting fair treatment. So I had enough money to go, but I had to give some of the money I got to the insurance company to a lawyer. Okay, 20% of it. So I mean, I'm back. But it took me a while. But I should have had uh, some cushion, for that. Okay, so save your money, invest your money wisely, and always have that rainy day fund. Always have that rainy day fund. Okay. Next thing, last thing, right here. Okay, man. Listen, I mean, look, some of y'all, I don't know who, and I don't put any pressure on anybody. Somebody has to be politically and civically enriched. Civic enrichment. Know how political systems work. Okay. There's a lot of controversy right now about the three branches of government: the legislative, the judicial, and the executive branch. A lot of people don't even know what that is. Okay, that term impeachment has come up again since those other impeachments, for the court, and people don't understand what that is. Okay, so be civically enriched. In other words, if you have a kid in the school, go to the meeting, go to the PT. If you're the only one there, and I wish I could let like my children, which they're adults now, get on here and talk to you about what I did, because I'm not just telling you all this stuff. This is stuff that I've done. I never missed a PTA meeting. I never missed a open house. I never missed a report card conference. I never missed a field. My job has allowed me, throughout the years to go on field trips with my children too. Okay, so be civic, be involved, be civically involved. You don't have to like run for office or anything like that, but go to meetings, and speak out for social and economic justice, in some form or fashion, Okay. So, again, be culturally enriched, be economically enriched, be wise, be prudent with your funds, be socially enriched, give something back every now and then, be civically enriched also. Now, I don't advise people on spirituality. I don't advise people on that. Okay, but I mean, I would if if the opportunity. But I mean, also, for me, I understand there's a being outside of myself that's greater than me, that's worthy of worship, and that helps me too in my life. Okay.
Yeah, that was wonderful, Musheer. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Okay.
We're kind of basically done with. Well, we don't have any other questions left, but I don't know, Eddie or Maya. I don't know if you guys have any questions. I do have one, but I want to like ask, like, if you guys
Go
have
ahead.
any.
Go ahead.
I
Go
wrote
ahead.
some down.
Hmm?
I
Go
wrote
ahead,
some.
Maya. What? Go
Oh,
ahead.
you're okay, Alexis. I like what he was talking about. You could ask your question.
Okay, cool. Oh, okay. Okay. So good. The question I have, Musheer, like, because like honestly, when you're calling out everybody, honestly, so real. But also, like, I guess the question I want to ask, like, personally, is like, how can we as students be able to like call out those who maybe well, not really just calling people out, but like
Mhm.
how do we as students like advocate and seek, you know, like justice for things, you know, in terms of like Mary Pleasant's history, your history,
Mhm.
and overall being able to expose, like show off the general truths that the school like has that they just haven't shared for some reason. Like like what would you like advise like us as students to like try to help
Mhm.
with that, I guess.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, so do your research, Alexis, Eddie, Maya. Do your research first. Okay, when you get out there, you can't be half stepping. Okay, don't be a. Now listen, you all put your undergraduate studies first. Okay, because as I said, no, we need y'all out here. Okay, but don't be afraid to speak up. And when you speak, like make sure you're standing on firm ground. Make sure you're standing on research. Okay, um, sometimes you can see allies in the administration. So, if you can see an ally there, like test, what you want to do, test what you want to say to them. And at times, your allies may not even be campus people. They be, listen, I'm sure Herman and I are going to be available, for you all as long as we live. This means a lot to Herman and I. You all taking your time and allowing us to do this. We really love y'all for this. I mean, real love, true love. Okay, so don't go out there half stepping, as we say. Like go ahead on. You know what half stepping is, huh?
Yeah.
When you get out there, when you get out there, make sure you have your research, stand on firm ground. Test some of your theories, test some of your ideas out with out, not just at school, but people in the community. Like you can test some things with Herman and I. Okay, and it's kind of difficult to do this sometimes, but make sure, okay, you organized. See, I'm just saying, see, like if you had like say four other people like you, they're like-minded, y'all on the same wavelength and everything like that. That collective, although, and just keep this in mind, strength may not be in the numbers all the time, but that collective body, like y'all working collectively, doing as one, thinking as one. That's a powerful force right there. It's not just Alexis. Oh, it's Eddie, it's Natalia, it's Maya. And look, they even got Musheer involved in this. Herman is involved in this too, because Thompson knows me. Thompson knows me, and Terry knows me, and Brother David knows me. And those are the three of the most important figures on campus. Okay. But they can't do me anything. Okay. They can't do me anything. Okay. So, like make sure you do your homework. If you can get, an ally, if you approach an administration or if you whatever you do, see if there's someone there that may be sensitive to what you're saying and what you want to do. Okay. And use presidents also. Use presidents also. You know, um, I can't think of one now, but the chapel protest. Okay, so we had what I would think would be an effective chapel protest. We had an effective boycott, and you all are reaching out to Herman and I now. We're looking at the dynamics, the reasons, the cause, like who the people, personalities were, and stuff like that. Use president. They're using president right now. So the president. Did somebody say something? Did somebody say something? Okay, so use president. So right now, right quick, y'all, right quick. So um, this whole idea of deportation and this alien deportation act, which is a wartime situation, the people who are resisting, people just getting picked up off the streets and taken out of the country, they're saying this alien act the administration is utilizing is unprecedented. Okay, so that you may not win all these situations, but you want to have a powerful argument. Okay, so the more research you do, the more you can organize around an issue, the more you can identify allies amongst those who you may be challenging, the better off you'll be. Okay, remember now, school first. God bless you. School first here. Okay, school first. And call, like I said, get with Michael, get with Professor Viola. If y'all need to get in touch with us, just hit us up. If we don't get back to you, I'm speaking for Herman too. If we don't get back to you right away, we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Okay. Did that answer your question, Alexis? Did that get your
Yeah.
question?
Yeah, that
Okay.
was perfect. And I actually
Yeah.
have someone in mind that I'm thinking of while you were talking. So that was great. Thank you.
Yeah. Don't be afraid. Yeah, don't be afraid either. Okay.
Oh yeah, for that part. But I think that's it today, guys. I don't know.
I just have a couple more questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Just wrote, I just wrote a couple down. Mr. Musheer.
Musheer is fine. Musheer is fine.
Oh,
That's
okay,
fine.
cool.
Yeah.
I just wrote down one while you were talking. You were talking a lot about culture,
Mhm.
and just wanted to know how would you define American culture?
Okay. Excellent question. Thanks for that question, Eddie. Okay. Now listen, don't take this the wrong way. Okay. But American culture is actually void, okay, of ethnic culture. Okay. The best of European, now I'm just saying this now, okay. I'm not totally negative against European culture. Okay. American culture, you all know what that is, right quick, right quick. The core of American culture. I'm gonna ask y'all, don't even have to answer, these are rhetorical questions, okay? What is popular unless it is violent? A video game is not a popular video game unless it is a television show, a movie, I'm working on a what I call best credible message, and I'll explain that to you some other time. Right now, I'm trying to get kids to keep profanity out of rap music, out of hip hop. Okay, so the core of European culture is the core of American culture also, which is sex, violence, misogyny, and drugs. Okay. Now we have cultures we should be understanding, like in African culture, in Chicano, Mexican culture, in Asian culture, stuff like that. There's a different sort of value. Okay. There's more of a value for family life. Okay. There's more of a value for responsibility. Okay. There's more of a value for, okay, so what helps us transition from children to youth into adulthood? So what do? We have rites of passage programs. We have initiation ceremonies. That's part of our tradition culture. So it's a Maya, this is a social work thing too. It's a maladaptive sort of situation because see, kids, I'm sorry, young people aren't being initiated in terms of this is how you provide for yourself. This is how interact in the community. This is how like you be decent here. It's gang banging. Gang banging is the process to which you have established, for people to be initiated into adulthood. So the core of American culture is really void of our values, the best of our cultures. Like I said, we know, as far as like African American culture is concerned, we come from a long line of people who are liberators, who are abolitionists, who fought for us. You see, our ancestors. So American culture right now is and then too, we're edging toward more. I'm just saying edging. We're edging toward more divisions now. Not just in politics, but also in racist and racial divisions. Also, there's more emphasis now on white supremacy than there's been like in a long time. Okay, so in essence, like the culture, you'd be remiss if you didn't analyze it and say, okay, well, what's popular? Sex is used for everything. They advertise everything. Okay, now look, it looks like now what it looks like is Alexis is trying to get back. Yeah, there she is. Okay, all right. So Eddie, sex, violence, and drugs is basically devoid of the best of our values. Okay, African values, African American values, Mexican, Chicano, Latino, it's void of that. Okay, it's void of that. Okay, yeah. So now, did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, thank you so much.
All right, you got another one?
Um, yeah, it was just a follow-up to that previous question. So how would you say American culture has changed due to your and Herman's, efforts during this expo?
Okay, all right. So some of my younger colleagues will tell me about a meeting where I'm a baby boomer. Okay, they some of the technology, um, I'm lost in some of that stuff. Okay. And I just lost my mom. She was 90. So you still have a lot of people who are approaching centenarians out here. They're more lost than me, and I'm a baby boomer. Okay. So one of the changes is that society used to be more user friendly and more supportive intergenerationally. Okay. But now, if you can't negotiate um, a website, you can't negotiate some of the more technical aspects of a computer or a cell phone, you're just lost. Okay. Um, Education wise, I had teachers who, even when I was at St. Mary's, some of my teachers dedicated themselves to me outside of the classroom. They wanted to make sure I had more of a holistic, well-rounded education. You see, so they would spend time with me, lunches and dinners and going to different places, and I'm noticing now to a certain extent that's changing. So technology has been the biggest concern and change. I think the literacy levels also have declined, which can be evidenced by what's going on with the education department. The state scores and stuff like that. Like people are finishing high school, and can barely read and write, and spell and stuff like that. So there's less of an emphasis now on producing like generations who would be more intellectually astute. There's also been a marginalization of seniors. We don't have that intergenerational connectedness the way we used to. We gather with our families and we're our faces in our cell phones, in our tablets, and our computers, and we're not really interacting. And getting back to that meeting they were talking about, they were saying that the baby boom, it was a virtual meeting. So the boomers, you know, they were like trying to negotiate. Okay, well, I can't get stuff like that. So you see, we've made progress now. Okay, I mean, we've had an African American president. I mean, we've made progress in many, many, many ways. But then we also see a reversal of some of those things as it relates to social and economic justice. The right to vote used to be protected by the federal government. The Supreme Court, they refused that. They relinquished their responsibility and gave everything back to the states. Okay, you see, even the abortion piece, for like 50 years, that was law. So that was reversed too. Okay, so we see a lot of human liberties, civil liberties being reversed. We don't see, like whereas like we have the type of sensitivity, okay, like in this country, to where it's like we can just help each other, get what we need, from society. Okay, so so like I said, a lot has changed for the better, some has changed for the worse.
Thank you so much. I have one last question.
Go
If,
ahead,
if you
go ahead, go ahead.
you've spoken a lot about Mary Pleasant and how your
Mm-hmm.
efforts to get her recognized
Mm-hmm.
in St. Mary's.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Say if you were on the school board, how would you honor her? Besides, just adding her as part of the curriculum, with like
Yeah,
celebrations,
yeah,
statues.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, um, I think somewhere on campus, people who attend the school, people who visit the school, from all over the world, should be able to see something there, either a bust, a statue. I'm not sure. Right now, I'm for the most cost-effective way. So if we can just have a space, like say maybe out there by the intercultural center, to where it's like you maybe just have like her bust, and then below that you have captions about her being a philanthropist, abolitionist, um, entrepreneur, something like that. Some caption about her contribution to the school. Like I said, initially, I want to go to the most cost-effective way as possible. I do want to get the alumni involved too, especially like the Black and Brown alumni, get them involved too, and let them know what we're trying to do. So if we need, financial support, they may be willing to contribute something. But I think, like a statue with some sort of caption, don't just put her face up there, a picture up there and stuff. Write something, have some sort of caption there, Eddie, Mine, and Alexis, and talk about exactly, like this is what she contributed, because now it's been reported, not only did she help the school get started, but St. Mary's burned down, back in the day. So it has been reported too that after they burned down, she also stepped right back in and gave them money to get restarted and to get the school rebuilt. So to answer your question, either a bus or a statue with some sort of caption, possibly, I mean, if we can, raise enough money, I mean, maybe, like a small building. Now, what I'm not for, I'm totally not for, they told, now this is what they kind of told me. I kind of got this from Terry. She's saying that, well, we can maybe change the name of the Intercultural Center and make it the Mary Pleasant Center. I'm not going for that, y'all. Okay, because that place, that's the 3 times. First, it was the multicultural. First, it was the Third World Center. No, I'm lying. The Multicultural Center. Then it was the Intercultural Center, and now they want to change the name again. So let's not have that place be a cure-all, for everything that's socially unjust. Let's not have that place. So I'm not for that. Okay, I think to get her name on a building for right now, that would be asking too much. That would be asking too much. I mean, I think that would be something in the future for new construction. Okay, so I would like to see if all alumni, not just Black and brown, all alumni, see if they're interested in that. They may want to contribute something, and if those contributions come in and they reach the magnitude to where it's like which is far fetched, it would be a building. Then yeah, let's do something. You could always use more space on campus. Okay, okay, so that's my idea of that. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Eddie. I just want to make a quick comment. That's wild. I work at the Dakota Center right now, so that's wild that I didn't that's trying to be put into place. That's wild.
Wait. They're trying. Would you say they're trying to do that?
Oh no, no, I was saying because I work at the IC, the Cultural Center
Yeah,
on
yeah,
campus.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I was making a comment like, wow, like that's great. Like I didn't even know that they were trying to do that with Mary
Well,
Pleasant.
this is a text. This is a text message I got where I was told that this was one of Terry's idea. You see, so I'm not saying they're going in that direction. Okay, that's just something that's tentative. They may try to do that, but I'm not going for that. I mean, I'm not going. I mean, it's okay. It's not the way to go. You can't use the IC every time somebody has a controversy or something that wants to press. You use the IC to placate that. That's not what that place is for. Yeah. You look in there right now, and that artwork is from our era. Those pictures you see in there, those those Chicano pictures, those black pictures, those are done by Mastelli and Mario Salazar. Okay, brilliant people, brilliant people, brilliant people, brilliant people. So no, I'm not going for that. No, no, no.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Ed. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said thank you so much.
All right, okay. Look. Let me just close with this. One more thing. Okay. So right quick, y'all, right quick. And thanks for indulging me. That era, for me, at St. Mary's 69, 73 was and see you all, I appreciate you all because you all are resonating some of these feelings and stuff like that. Um, Loaded with an abundance of talent. People, it just wasn't about protests. There were plays. We had a weekly jazz show. There were people who were musically inclined, to whereas in Midi Hall, you had 2 people with really good voices. Uh, Salim Abdul-Jabbar, who's a friend of mine, not related to me, we both from LA. Myron Pembroke, I went to high school with him, and Reggie Lewis from the Bay Area. They sang in a cappella. Like when they had their leisure time, they got together as a trio without any music, and they sang in a cappella. They sang without any music. So you could walk in Midi Hall and you could hear their 3-part harmonies, like at least like once or twice a week when they had time. Um, you know, uh, you know, people, you know, that artwork you see in the IC. Herman and I wrote a lot of poetry. We shared this poetry in some of our other classes. We just didn't limit the poetry to African American literature classes, but in some of the other Black Studies classes, we were allowed to come in there and read. And we were also asked to read throughout the Bay Area. Okay. So as I said, you know, when we wanted to do you know, our political movement for positions in student government, we had people who could write speeches. You know, we had people who were brilliant orators, you know, brilliant debaters. You know, it was a universal, situation because we had people from Africa, and those people went on to be leaders in their countries. Look up Joseph Blell, last name Bellell. Now, there's a name you're not going to be able to spell, but I'll get with you all. Ganyete Gitu, they from Kenya. You know, these are people who held top political positions, top positions of leadership in their countries. But that embryonic process where they started to develop those happened when we were in school. You see, so I cannot say how proud I am, first of all, to be, you know, exchanging, you know, like ideas with you all. You know, thank you all. May Allah bless you all for all of that. I love y'all for that. And I always will. And Herman and I are always going to be here for y'all too. So don't be afraid to hit us up if y'all need something. But that time was a time of not just boycotts, it was a celebration of culture. It was a celebration of culture. You know, people, we saw a lot of serapes on campus. We saw a lot of traditional African clothing on a campus. And, we stuck together. We stuck, Black, brown, Asian community, we stuck together. All those movements consisted of all those ethnicities working together. Okay. Not to mention all that athletic talent. Okay. All that athletic talent. But it wasn't just about that. It was about developing our intellects. We had a strong emphasis on intellectual development. Okay. Those of us who were ball players, we just didn't want to be just dumb jocks. Okay. When the women came, that made the community more whole. And we, bonded and banded together for a lot of things. Okay. So I couldn't be more proud to be, it's like a mosaic of talent. Okay. It's a mosaic also of ethnicities. So I couldn't be more proud of that. Likewise, I'm also proud of y'all. Okay. So that's my last thing I wanted to say. Okay.
We appreciate you, Musheer. Thank you so much for talking with
Thank
us
you.
today.
Thank you,
Thank
Musheer.
you. Thank you, Alexis and Maya and Eddie. Tell Natalie I said thank you too. All right,
Will
see
do.
y'all. See y'all. Y'all take care. Now I love y'all. Now take care now.
You too.
Okay, study
Thank
hard.
you.
Y'all
Have a
study
good
hard.
one.
Don't come out there and check on y'all. Better study hard. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. All right. Mm.